I didn't mean to find it. That's the part I keep coming back to. Like if I repeat it enough, it might change something. Like intent matters. Like there's a version of this where I walked away 10 seconds earlier and none of this ever happened. But I didn't. And now I know how it ends. It started 3 months ago, on a Tuesday that felt exactly like every other Tuesday before it. I work in data recovery, not the exciting kind people imagine, not hacking or cybercrime or anything like that. I restore corrupted drives for insurance companies, small businesses, sometimes the police, when they don't want to escalate something to digital forensics. Most of what I deal with is boring. Broken RAID arrays, water-damaged laptops, servers that failed because someone ignored a warning light for 6 months. It's predictable work, safe work, the kind of job where problems have causes and causes have solutions. That's important, because what I found didn't. The drive came in near the end of the day, logged as part of a bulk intake from an estate clearance. No name attached, just a barcode and a note. Partial recovery requested. Prioritize readable documents. That wasn't unusual. Families rarely know what they're handing over. Photos, financial records, sometimes personal journals. Occasionally something you wish you hadn't opened. This one looked older than most. Not ancient, but outdated enough to stand out. A solid-state hybrid with a casing style I hadn't seen in years. No visible damage, no burn marks, no water exposure, just dead. At least that's what it said on intake. I plugged it in out of habit more than anything else. The system didn't recognize it immediately, which wasn't strange. I ran a standard initialization script, expecting the usual. Fragmented sectors, corrupted headers, maybe a partially intact file tree if I got lucky. Instead, the screen flickered. Not dramatically, not like in the movies. Just a brief, subtle distortion, like the refresh rate dipped for half a second. Then the drive mounted. That alone should have been my first red flag. Dead drives don't just mount cleanly after failing initial recognition. There's always something. Resistance, delay, noise in the data. This one opened like it had been waiting. The directory was almost empty. No photos, no documents, no folders labeled taxes or family or anything human. Just a single executable file sitting in the root. No name, just a blank icon. I hovered over it for a second, expecting metadata to populate. File size, date modified, anything. Nothing. That's when I should have stopped. Instead, I clicked it. The program opened instantly. No loading screen, no interface, just a black window with a blinking cursor, like an old command prompt, stripped down to its bones. Then text appeared. Not typed, not rendered, just there. Query. I remember frowning at it, thinking it was some kind of unfinished software, maybe a developer's sandbox, something abandoned. I typed the first thing that came to mind. Hello? The cursor blinked once. Then the screen responded. Invalid format. For some reason that annoyed me. Not scared me, not even unsettled me. Just irritated me, like a form that rejects your input without telling you why. Okay, I muttered, even though I was alone. What format? There was a pause, not a long one, maybe a second. Then, yes, no only. Future event required, subject must be specified. I stared at the screen a little longer this time. It read like instructions. Not helpful ones, but specific enough to follow. I should explain something about myself here. I'm not reckless. I don't go looking for weird experiences or unexplainable things. I like systems, rules, predictability. So when something presents itself like a system, my instinct isn't to run, it's to understand it. I leaned back in my chair, thinking it through. Yes or no question, about the future, with a defined subject. Fine. Will I finish all my assigned recoveries today? The cursor blinked. Once, twice. Then the answer appeared. Yes, 93%. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was stupid. It felt like one of those fake AI Oracle programs people used to make. Input a question, get a weighted answer. Randomized probabilities dressed up as insight. Okay, I said. Sure. I went back to work, and for a while I forgot about it. The rest of the day went smoother than usual. No complications, no unexpected corruptions. Even a drive I'd flagged as low recovery yielded more usable data than expected. By the time I checked the clock, I was done. Every task cleared. I remember pausing, my hand still on the mouse, and glancing back at the open window on my second monitor. Yes, 93%. It didn't feel impressive, just coincidental. 93% wasn't certainty. It left room for chance. Enough room to dismiss it. So that's what I did. I shut down for the day, logged my hours, and went home. I didn't think about the program again until the next morning. That's when I made my first mistake. I asked it something that mattered. I don't remember exactly what pushed me to do it. Maybe curiosity, maybe boredom, maybe that quiet, persistent feeling that something about the whole thing hadn't added up. The office was quiet when I got in, too early for most of the team. Just the low hum of servers and the occasional click of cooling systems adjusting to load. I plugged the drive back in. It mounted instantly. No flicker this time. Just ready, waiting. The program was still open where I'd left it. Black screen, blinking cursor. Query. I didn't sit down right away. I stood there for a second, staring at it, like it might do something on its own if I gave it enough time. It didn't. So I sat, and I typed, "Will anything significant happen to me today?" I hesitated before hitting enter. Not because I was scared, because I realized just for a second that I actually wanted an answer. Then I pressed the key. The cursor blinked, and this time it took longer. Long enough for me to notice. Long enough for something in my chest to tighten just a little. Then the response appeared. Yes, 100%. I felt that one. Not yet. But something shifted. Because 93% is chance. But 100%? That's not a prediction. That's a promise. And I had no idea what I'd just asked for. I didn't believe it. That's important. If I had, I might have acted differently. I might have gone home, called in sick, stayed in bed, avoided people, avoided decisions, avoided anything that could qualify as significant. But I didn't believe it. I minimized the window, opened my task queue, and started my day like nothing had changed. For the first hour, everything was normal. Emails, diagnostics, routine recoveries. I even forgot about the program again, the same way you forget a strange dream once you've brushed your teeth and had coffee. But there's a difference between forgetting something and it letting you forget. Around mid-morning, I noticed the first anomaly. A file I had already restored the day before, verified, logged, and archived, was suddenly flagged as corrupted again. That doesn't happen. Not in any way that makes sense. Recovery is a one-way process. Once the data is stabilized and extracted, it doesn't just revert. It doesn't decay sitting safely on a clean system. I opened the file. It was a video. Security footage, timestamped 2 weeks prior. A convenience store robbery. I remembered it clearly because of how uneventful it was. The suspect had walked in, demanded cash, left. No violence, no complications. The kind of footage that exists purely for insurance documentation. I hit play. The video started normally. The suspect entered. The clerk raised their hands. The camera angle was fixed, slightly grainy. Then, about 12 seconds in, the footage glitched. Not distortion. A jump. Like a skipped frame, but longer. When the image stabilized, the scene had changed. The suspect was gone. The clerk was on the floor, and there was blood. I froze, not because of what I was seeing, but because I knew it wasn't possible. I had watched this exact footage the day before. There had been no violence, no weapon drawn, no injury. I scrubbed back, played it again. Same result. Normal, glitch, blood. I checked the file metadata. Same timestamp, same file size, same checksum. Identical. Except it wasn't. A cold, creeping sensation started to settle in my chest. I minimized the video, and without really thinking about it, brought the program back up. The cursor was still blinking. Query. I stared at it longer this time. Then I typed, "Was the original version of that file different yesterday?" The response came faster than before. Yes, 100%. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. That didn't make sense. It didn't even pretend to make sense. Files don't rewrite themselves retroactively. Data doesn't change in the past. Unless, I stopped that thought before it could finish. Instead, I tried something else. Will that file change again? The cursor blinked once. No. 82%. I exhaled, not realizing I'd been holding my breath. 82% felt safer. Less final. Still, I closed the video, logged the anomaly, didn't report it. That part matters too. Because if I had told someone then, if I had escalated it, documented everything, pulled in another set of eyes, maybe this would have stopped at weird. But I didn't. I kept it to myself. By lunchtime, I had convinced myself it was a glitch, a rare, inexplicable error, but still something grounded in reality. Systems fail in strange ways sometimes. Data gets overwritten, logs get corrupted. There are always explanations, even if you don't know them yet. I left the office to grab food, needing the break more than I wanted to admit. The air outside felt sharper than usual, colder, like the day hadn't decided what season it belonged to. I remember checking my phone while I walked. No messages, no missed calls, nothing significant. I almost laughed at that. Almost. The place I went to was a small deli a few blocks down. Nothing special. I'd been there dozens of times. Same order, same routine. Familiar, safe. I stood in line, half paying attention to the people around me, half thinking about the file, the program, the answers. 100%. That number kept coming back. When it was my turn, I stepped up to the counter, and that's when everything tilted. Not physically, not like the ground shifted or the lights flickered, just wrong. The guy behind the counter looked at me like he recognized me. Not in the casual, "you're a regular" way, something sharper than that. "You're early," he said. I blinked. "What?" He frowned like I'd said something confusing. "You usually come in later." "I think you've got me mixed up with someone else," I said. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, maybe." But his expression didn't change. I paid, took my food, and sat down by the window. I told myself it was nothing, just a misunderstanding. But something about the way he'd said it, certain, not guessing, stuck with me. I ate quickly, not really tasting anything, and left sooner than I planned. Halfway back to the office, I stopped walking. The realization didn't hit all at once. It unfolded, piece by piece, like something assembling itself in the back of my mind. You're early. Not, you came in early, you're early. Like there was a version of me that had already been there. I turned around. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. Or curiosity. When I got back to the deli, the line was gone. The place was quieter. The same guy was behind the counter, wiping down a surface that didn't need cleaning. He looked up when I walked in, and this time there was no hesitation, no confusion, just recognition. "You came back," he said. A pause. Then more quietly, "You're not supposed to do that." Something cold slid down my spine. "What do you mean?" I asked. He opened his mouth, stopped, then shook his head like he'd just woken up. "Sorry," he said. "Long day." I stood there for a second longer, waiting for something else. Nothing came. So I left. And this time, I didn't stop walking until I was back at my desk. The office felt different when I returned. Not visibly. Everything was where it should be. People at their stations. The low hum of machines. The same controlled, predictable environment I'd always relied on. But it didn't feel the same. I sat down slowly. looked at the second monitor. The program was still there, waiting. I didn't hesitate this time. Did I already come to the deli once today? The response appeared instantly. Yes, 100%. My throat went dry. That didn't make sense. I remembered leaving the office once, walking there once, ordering once. There wasn't space in my memory for a second visit, and yet, you're early. You came back. You're not supposed to do that. I swallowed, tried to steady my hands. Did I forget it? A pause. Then, no, 100%. That answer hit harder than the first one, because forgetting would have been explainable. Forgetting is human. This wasn't. I stared at the screen, my reflection faintly visible in the black background. Then what happened? The cursor blinked. Once, twice, then invalid format. Of course. I let out a shaky breath, recentered, asked the question the way it wanted. Will I understand what happened if I keep asking questions? The system took longer this time, long enough for that tight feeling in my chest to return. Then, yes, 96%. Not certain, but close. Close enough to matter. Close enough to be dangerous. I sat back in my chair, eyes still locked on the screen. Up until that moment, this had been strange, unsettling, but still manageable. Still something I could frame as a problem to solve. But now there was a pattern forming. Not just in the answers, in me. Because I realized something I didn't want to admit. I wasn't trying to disprove it anymore. I was trying to use it. And that shift, that small, quiet change in intention, that's when things actually started to go wrong. I told myself I would stop, that I would treat it like any other anomaly. Document it, isolate it, pass it up the chain, let someone else deal with it. That was the responsible thing to do. The rational thing. I even opened a report template. I typed out the first line. Unidentified executable recovered from a state drive. And then I stopped, because I knew what would happen next. They would take the drive. They would run controlled tests. They would restrict access. And whatever this was, whatever it could do, it wouldn't be mine anymore. That thought settled in deeper than it should have. Not fear, not curiosity, something quieter. Possession. I deleted the report, minimized the window, and turned back to the program. Query. It looked the same. It always looked the same. Like nothing had changed. Like nothing ever would. But I had. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the desk. Will using this system benefit me? The response came quickly. Yes, 89%. 89 wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Enough to justify continuing. Enough to ignore the part of my brain that was starting to push back. I nodded to myself, like I'd just confirmed something logical. Then I asked, will it harm me? A longer pause. Then, yes, 72%. That made me hesitate. Not because it said yes, but because it didn't say always. 72% meant there was a chance it wouldn't. And for some reason, that felt acceptable. That's how it works, I think. Not by convincing you it's safe, by convincing you it's worth it. I exhaled slowly. Will the benefits outweigh the harm? Then the cursor blinked. Then, yes, 81%. That was the answer that decided it. Not completely, not consciously, but enough. I straightened in my chair, rolling my shoulders back, like I was preparing for something official, structured, controlled. If I follow the rules, will the answers remain accurate? Yes, 95%. Rules. That word mattered. It meant there were boundaries, and boundaries meant control, or at least the illusion of it. I started small. That was another mistake. Because small things are easy to justify, easy to repeat. Will my next recovery job complete without complications? Yes, 92%. It did, exactly as predicted. Efficient. No issues. then another. Will my supervisor approve my request for extended access hours this week? Yes, 87%. He did. No questions asked. Then another. Will I receive any unexpected expenses this month? No, 78%. That one didn't feel as solid, but still, nothing happened. No surprise bills, no emergencies, just smooth, predictable, better than normal. By the end of the day, I'd asked 7 questions. Nothing major, nothing risky, just small optimizations, little edges, and every single one had leaned in my favor. Not perfectly, but enough. Enough to reinforce the pattern, enough to make it feel real. When I left the office that night, something had shifted again. The world felt aligned, like things were falling into place, just a little easier than they should. Traffic lights hit green more often. Crosswalks cleared right as I approached. Even the usual background noise of the city felt quieter. Or maybe I was just paying attention differently, looking for confirmation, finding it. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I walked. No destination, just moving, thinking, testing. Will I see something unusual if I keep walking for 10 minutes? Yes, 64%. Lower, less certain, but still, at exactly 9 minutes, I saw it. A car parked halfway onto the sidewalk. Engine running, driver's seat empty. That wasn't the unusual part. Part was that no one seemed to notice. People walked past it like it wasn't there. Didn't look, didn't react. Like it didn't register. I slowed, watched, waited, nothing. No owner, no explanation. Just a running car in the wrong place. I pulled out my phone, opened the program through a remote link I'd set up earlier. Something I hadn't planned to do, but had done anyway, just in case. Query: is that car connected to this system? The answer came back: no, 91%. I frowned. Is it unusual that no one is reacting to it? Yes, 88%. A faint pressure started building behind my eyes. Not pain, just awareness. Like something was off, and I was the only one noticing it. Or maybe the only one allowed to notice. I looked around again. Still nothing. People moved around it naturally, unconcerned. I took a step closer, then stopped. A thought surfaced. Sharp, uncomfortable. If I interact with that car, will something bad happen? The response took longer. Long enough for my pulse to pick up. Then, yes, 94%. I stepped back immediately. Didn't question it. Didn't test it. Just listened. And that was new. Because up until that moment, I'd been experimenting. Now I was obeying. I turned away from the car and walked in the opposite direction. Faster this time. Not running. But close. By the time I got home, the feeling had faded. Mostly. I told myself it was fine. That I was still in control. That I could stop whenever I wanted. I even proved it. I didn't open the program that night. Didn't ask any questions. Didn't check anything. I went to bed like normal. And for a few hours, it worked. I slept. Dreamless. Quiet. Then I woke up. 3:17 a.m. No alarm. No noise. Just awake. The room felt wrong. Not different. Just observed. Like something had shifted while I was asleep. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what had pulled me out of sleep so suddenly. Then I heard it. A faint sound from the other room. My computer. I sat up slowly. I knew I turned it off. I always turn it off. But the sound was unmistakable. A low, steady hum. Active. Running. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood. The air felt colder, heavier. Each step toward the living room felt deliberate, like I was moving through something, not just across space. When I reached the doorway, I stopped. The monitor was on. Black screen, white text, Query. I hadn't touched it, hadn't opened it, hadn't even logged in remotely. And yet, it was waiting. Not for input, for me. A slow, creeping realization began to form. One I didn't want to follow to its conclusion, but I couldn't stop it. Up until now, I had been asking the questions. But what if I took another step forward? The floor creaked under my weight. The cursor blinked. Once, twice. Then the text changed. Not a response, not an instruction, a question. Will you ask the right one? My mouth went dry. That wasn't part of the system. There had never been initiative before. No deviation, no autonomy. I should have unplugged it, shut it down, walked away. Instead, I moved closer, sat down, hands hovering over the keyboard. My reflection stared back at me from the dark screen. But something about it felt off. Not wrong, just delayed. Like it wasn't perfectly in sync. I swallowed and typed. What is the right question? The cursor blinked. Longer this time. Long enough for the silence in the room to feel oppressive. Then, you already know. A chill ran through me, because I did, or at least part of me did. The same part that had deleted the report, the same part that had kept asking, that had kept pushing. I stared at the screen, my fingers resting lightly on the keys, and slowly, carefully, I began to type the question I had been avoiding since the beginning. Mattered. The one that everything else had been leading toward. And even before I finished typing it, I knew. This was the point where I stopped being able to pretend I was in control. My hands didn't feel like mine anymore. That's the closest way I can explain it. Not numb, not disconnected, just committed. Like whatever hesitation I should have had already been used up somewhere earlier, on smaller questions that didn't matter. This one did. And I finished typing it anyway. Will I die because of this machine? The moment I hit enter, I wanted to take it back. Not because I expected a specific answer, because I realized I wasn't asking out of curiosity anymore. I was asking because I needed to know. The screen didn't respond immediately. That alone was enough to make something in my chest tighten. Up until now, even the longer pauses had felt like processing. This felt like consideration, like something was deciding how to answer, or whether to. The cursor blinked. Once, twice, 3 times. Then the response appeared. Yes, 100%. I stared at it, waiting for something else to follow. A clarification, a delay, anything to soften it. Nothing came. Just that. Final. Absolute. I exhaled slowly, but it didn't help. My breathing felt shallow, like my body hadn't caught up with what I'd just read. Okay, I whispered, though I wasn't sure who I was saying it to. Okay. I swallowed and leaned closer. If I stop using it right now, will I avoid that outcome? The response came faster. No, 100%. That hit harder, because it closed the door, not just on the machine, on the idea that I could undo this, that I could walk away and return to whatever normal had been before. I shook my head, trying to clear it. Is that because I've already used it? Yes, 100%. A cold, steady pressure settled behind my eyes. Cause and effect. That was something I understood. You do something, and it leads to consequences. But this felt like the consequence had already happened, and I was just catching up to it. I forced myself to keep going, because stopping now didn't change anything. If I continue using it, can I change how it happens? The pause was shorter this time. Then, yes, 61%. Not good, but not zero, not nothing. A narrow path, a margin. That was enough. It had to be. My thoughts started moving faster, reorganizing around that number. Not avoidance, adjustment. If the outcome was fixed, Maybe the details weren't. Just steer it, minimize it, control it. That word again, control. I leaned in further. Will I die soon? Yes, 78%. My stomach dropped. Soon wasn't defined, but 78% wasn't distant. It wasn't abstract. It was approaching. I could feel it in the way my pulse had started to thrum in my ears, in the way the room seemed smaller than it had a few minutes ago. Will I die today? The cursor blinked. No, 85%. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Time. Not much, but some. Enough to act, enough to think. Will I die within a week? Yes, 73%. That narrowed it, sharpened it, turned it from something distant into something immediate, a countdown without numbers. I pushed my chair back slightly, running a hand through my hair. This was spiraling. No, it had already spiraled. I was just seeing the shape of it now. I needed something concrete, something actionable. Is my death caused directly by the machine? The response came quickly. No, 92%. I frowned. That didn't make sense. If not the machine, then is it caused by something I do because of the machine? Yes, 100%. There it was, the loop, tight, closed, unavoidable. I let out a short, humorless laugh. I muttered. Of course it wasn't the tool. It was me. My choices. Guided. Shaped. But still mine. Or at least, they felt like they were. I looked back at the screen. The cursor blinked patiently. Waiting. Always waiting. Can you tell me what I should do to avoid it? I already knew the answer before it came. Invalid format. Of course, it doesn't tell you what to do, it just tells you what will happen. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling for a second, thinking. Not panicking, not yet, just thinking. Then I sat forward again. New approach. Will asking more questions increase my chances of dying sooner? Yes, 88%. That made my fingers hesitate. For the first time since this started, I considered stopping. Not because I thought it would save me, but because it might slow things down, delay it. But then, will stopping now improve my chances of survival? The cursor blinked. Then, no, 100%. That settled it. Stopping didn't help. Continuing made it worse. There was no good option. Only less bad ones. I stared at the screen, my reflection staring back. Still slightly off. Still not quite in sync. And then I noticed something, a detail I hadn't paid attention to before. Every answer, every single one, had been about me. My actions. My outcomes. But the system, whatever it was, had never been the subject. Not once. A thought formed, slow, careful. If the machine didn't exist, would I still die within a week? The response took longer. Long enough for the hum of the computer to feel louder than it should. Then, no, 100%. There it was. Not the cause, but the origin. I leaned closer, my eyes fixed on the text. So this is your fault, I said quietly. The cursor blinked. No response, because I hadn't asked a valid question. I adjusted. Does the existence of this machine guarantee my death? Yes, 100%. My jaw tightened. Something shifted then. Not fear, not panic. Something sharper. Anger. Not at the machine, at the situation, at the way it had unfolded, at how easily I had stepped into it. Can it be destroyed? The cursor blinked. Then yes, 67%. 67, not certain, but possible. That was something. That was action. My gaze dropped to the physical drive sitting beside the monitor. Small, unremarkable, silent. It didn't look like something that could dictate outcomes, that could trap you in something like this. But it had. Or maybe I had done that part myself. I reached for it. my fingers hovering just above the casing. If I destroy it right now, will I survive? The pause was longer this time. Long enough for doubt to creep back in. Then, no, 100%. My hand stopped, hung there, frozen, because that meant even ending it didn't end it. I pulled my hand back slowly. My heart was pounding now, louder, faster. Is there any action I can take that results in me surviving this week? The cursor blinked, once, twice, 3 times. Then, no, 100%. Silence filled the room, thick, heavy, final. No path, no solution, no escape. Just a narrowing line of time. I sat there, staring at the screen, letting that settle, letting it sink in fully. Because there was no point in pretending anymore. No point in looking for a loophole. It had already accounted for that, for everything. I let out a slow breath, and for the first time since this started, I stopped trying to fight it. Not because I accepted it, because I understood it. This was never about avoiding the outcome. It was about seeing it, experiencing it, knowing it, before it happened. I looked at the cursor, still blinking, still waiting, and I asked one final question, not to change anything. Escape, just to understand. Will I know exactly when it happens? The response came immediately. Yes, 100%. I nodded slowly. That made sense. Of course it did. Because if there was one thing this machine was good at, it was making sure you saw it coming. I didn't sleep after that. There didn't seem to be a point. Time had changed shape. It wasn't something I moved through anymore. It was something narrowing around me, tightening with every hour I stayed aware of it. I called in sick the next morning. My voice sounded normal when I did it, which surprised me. Steady, controlled, like I was reporting something routine, instead of sitting in my apartment knowing with absolute certainty that I wasn't going to make it through the week. They didn't question it. Of course they didn't. I spent the first day testing the edges of it. Not the machine. I stayed away from that. But reality itself. I avoided anything remotely risky. Didn't leave the apartment. Didn't cook. Didn't shower. I even unplugged most of my electronics, like somehow reducing variables would matter. Nothing happened. No sudden accidents. No unexplained events. No creeping sense that something was about to break through the walls. Just waiting. That was the worst part. Because every uneventful hour didn't feel like safety. It felt like delay. By the second day, the silence started to get to me. Not external silence. There were still cars outside, footsteps in the hallway, the distant hum of other people living their lives. But internal silence. The absence of interruption. No escalation. No warning. Just the memory of that answer. Yes, 100%. I tried to distract myself. TV, music, anything to fill the space, but everything felt thin, temporary, like I was watching something that had already ended. By the third day, I broke, not in some dramatic way. No shouting, no panic attack, no moment of visible collapse. I just sat down in front of the computer again, powered it on, plugged the drive back in, because not knowing anything beyond "it will happen" was worse than whatever came next. The screen lit up. Black. Cursor. Query. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed, "Will it happen today?" The response came instantly. Yes, 100%. My chest tightened. Of course it would be today. Of course it wouldn't drag out any longer than it had to. I swallowed. Will it happen in this apartment? No, 93%. That made me pause, because it meant I would have to leave, at some point, despite everything I'd done to avoid exactly that. Will I choose to leave? Yes, 100%. A slow sinking feeling settled in. Choice, always framed as choice, even when it wasn't. I sat there for a while longer, staring at the screen, trying to feel something clear, fear, anger, anything sharp enough to hold on to. But what I felt instead was inevitability, like standing on a track and seeing something coming from too far away to hear, but too close to outrun. Eventually, I stood, got dressed, moved through my apartment like I was following instructions I couldn't hear anymore. I didn't take the drive with me. I don't know why. Maybe because some part of me understood that it didn't matter. The hallway outside felt longer than usual, or maybe I was just noticing it more. Every detail stood out. The faint flicker of a light near the exit sign. The sound of someone moving in an apartment 2 doors down. Normal things, final things. When I stepped outside, the air felt sharp again, like it had that first day. Cold, clear, real. I started walking. No destination. Just like before. And about 10 minutes in, I understood. Not because something jumped out, not because anything obvious changed, but because I saw it. Parked halfway onto the sidewalk. Engine running. Driver's seat empty. The same car. Exactly the same. Waiting. My steps slowed, then stopped. A memory surfaced, clear and immediate. If I interact with that car, will something bad happen? Yes, 94%. I let out a breath that almost turned into a laugh. Not because it was funny, because it was simple. That was it. That was the moment. Not random, not unpredictable, just placed. Carefully, precisely. I could walk away. I knew that. But I also knew what the system had said. Will I choose to leave? Yes, 100%. Choice. Again. Always framed as mine. I took a step forward. Then another. Each one felt lighter than it should have. Like resistance had already been accounted for and removed. When I reached the driver's side, I hesitated. Just for a second. Enough to recognize that this was the exact point where everything could still diverge, where I could still pretend I had control. Then, I reached for the handle. And the moment my hand touched it, I knew. Not what would happen, but that this was it. The exact second the answer had been waiting for. Yes, 100%. The door opened, and everything after that happened exactly the way it was always going to.